Hello students, in continuation, today we shall also try to understand some of the passages from the Merchant of Venice. We shall try to know the reference to the context as well as their explanation. For this, I have chosen two passages from scene 3rd of Act 1. Passage number 1, that is from the scene 3rd. If I can catch him once upon the hip, I will feed fat the ancient grudge I bear him. He hates our sacred nation, and he rails even there where merchants most do congregate. On me, my bargains, and my well worn thrift, which he calls interest. Cursed my tribe if I forgive him. So, this is the passage that we are going to understand today. One more passage after this. So, you know it very well that this is from the Merchant of Venice, because now we are doing this comedy play written by William Shakespeare. I have also told you that these lines are from Act 1, Scene 3rd. Now, what is the context? These words have been spoken, or these words are actually an aside by Shylock. This is the speech of Shylock, or spoken by Shylock in an aside. Here the word aside is very much important. I will explain it to you. When he speaks, Shylock speaks these words when Bassanio was asking him to lend him 3,000 ducats on Antonio's bond, on the guarantee of Antonio. For this, Shylock was actually debating within himself as how he could exploit this opportunity of a business deal with his old enemy Antonio. So, here we must understand what is an aside. Aside is a poetical term or dramatic term used by Shakespeare in his plays. When the actor speaks to himself on the stage, or when he murmurs on the stage, the thought that is running into his mind, he speaks to himself. That is, the audience are not supposed to hear or listen to the words of the actor. So, this is called aside. Here, on asking Bassanio for lending him the loan, Shylock speaks to himself. And what he speaks to himself are these words. That is, he is thinking whether he should loan him or not, or if he loans him, then he should also get benefited or get the opportunity to take the revenge upon his oldest enemy. And who is the oldest enemy of Shylock? Yes, Antonio is the oldest and uh, severe dead enemy of Shylock. So Shylock wants to take the revenge. Now, what are the regions? What are those things that makes them enemies? So here Shylock gives us the regions, the grounds on which he hates Antonio. And we have already read why Antonio hates Shylock. The number one, that is that Shylock is a Jew. The second, that Shylock takes high interest on giving the loans, whereas Antonio gives free loans. So these are the basic differences between them. These are the commercial as well as the personal rivalries or personal hates, which are the barriers between them. So when Shylock is humming or Shylock is thinking, at once Antonio appears there on the scene. Antonio has also reflects clearly his anxiety, and he tries to put on a look of humility as well as entreaty to conciliate the Jew. He wanted to console the Jew. He wanted to reset the prejudice that he has against the Jew. But this humility appears false to the Jew, because the Jew, that is Shylock, understand very well that Antonio can never love him. So let us see these lines. What is the meaning of these lines? As we know that these are spoken aside by Shylock, and Shylock gives the genesis, the grounds of his attitude of hostility, enmity to Antonio due to individual, racial, social, and commercial reasons. He hates Antonio because, number one, Antonio is a Christian. Number two, Antonio lends money without interest. Number three, Antonio hates the Jewish nation. Number four, he has often insulted Shylock in public places. So these are the four motives of malice against Antonio. And for this point of view, or for these reasons, Shylock now determines to take a revenge, terrible revenge, on his enemy. Once he gets the chance, once he finds him at a disadvantage. So it's clear that Shylock hates Antonio as a Christian, as a lender of money gratis, as a proud Venetian citizen, and as he always used to insult Shylock in public fashion. So, in these lines, Shylock thinks that if he gets the opportunity to take the revenge upon his enemy, he will get the benefit of that. And he is in search of that. He is looking for that time or that chance that he can take the revenge. And the reasons are very much clear. So this is the explanation of these lines. Uh, uh, I will feed fat the ancient grudge I bear him. Shylock tells that he has ancient grudge, past, long past hatred, prejudice, grudge against Antonio. Why? Because Antonio hates their sacred nation and he rails, even there where merchants most to congregate on me. That is, he used to insult Shylock always in the public and calls his profit as a thrift. Because after all, business is a bargaining. Everyone does that or everyone does so. So there is no harm for a businessman to get the maximum benefit. So this is called interest by Antonio. Antonio, he also tells that Shylock tells that he has cursed my tribe, that is the Jew. Shylock is the Jew and hated by every Christian. It was a fashion at the time. If I forgive him, Shylock speaks, if I forgive him, that is, he can never forgive him if he gets the chance. Okay, now let us see. There is a phrase upon the hip in these lines, in the first line. This is a metaphor and this implies at a disadvantage. Meaning of this metaphor is at a disadvantage, and which probably comes from wrestling. A wrestler, when seized round the hips, would be in danger of being thrown. So here, due to grievances against Antonio, Shylock is waiting for the chance to take the revenge upon Antonio. That is, once he get the hip of Antonio, he would be able to win the race. This is what the meaning of this phrase here. Okay, now let's go with the next passage of this Act 1. And that is, I recite, if thou wilt lend this money, lend it not. As to thy friends, for when did friendship take a breed for barren metal of his friend? But lend it rather to thine enemy, who, if he break, thou mayest with better face exact the penalty. So these are the lines. I think you have followed, you have understood with these lines that these lines are spoken by Antonio. And same, these lines are from scene 3rd of the same Act 1, as we know. And these lines have been spoken to Shylock. When we saw that the Jew, that is Shylock, breaks out in a long catalogue his grievances. He expresses his grievances against Antonio. We have seen in the previous lines that why he hates Antonio. That is, there are the reasons which are personal, religious, commercial, and racial. So, after this bitter speech of Shylock, Antonio stung out of his self-control. That is, he loses his self-control and retorted Shylock, saying by saying that he always hates the Jews as much as ever, and he will treat him in the same way again. That is, his hatredness against the Jew is permanent. He won't leave it. He openly challenges Shylock that whatever he may do, but he will be hating him continuously. Then he says to Shylock that he is prepared to take the loan on the strictest and severest conditions that Shylock chooses to impose upon him. That is, Antonio is ready to take the loan, although both of them are enemies. Even then, Antonio is ready to take the loan upon the hardest and severest conditions laid by Shylock upon him. Why? Because Antonio is a very close friend of Bassanio and he wants to help Bassanio in any condition. So, this is the context of these lines. Now, let us see what he says in these lines. So, during this conversation, Antonio tells Shylock that his behavior won't change towards Shylock and he is ready to take the loan on his conditions. Whatever the conditions Shylock lays upon him, he is ready. But Shylock must understand. Antonio tells that Shylock must understand that he is lending money not to a friend but to an enemy. That is, Shylock should think that he is lending the money not a friend but to an enemy, and therefore he can impose any penalty rigorously in case of default. So he can impose any penalty if Antonio is unable to repay the loan. So Antonio here asking for the loan not as being a friend of Shylock but being as an enemy. So why does he say so? Because Antonio says that Shylock is not going to oblige his friend. There is no friend at all. So he is not obliging any friend. And a friend never demands interest on the money. Here Antonio also understands this, that Shylock is not his friend and therefore they are enemies. So he never demands. If he were the friend of Antonio, he would never demand the interest on the money that he lends, and he would never multiply his money by charging high interest on the loans given to his friends. So the deal here is not between the friends but between the enemies. And Antonio, as an enemy, agrees with all the conditions laid down by Shylock. And in this way, what we see, that Antonio is instigating Shylock's cupidity, Shylock's passion for revenge. Because in Shylock's mind, there is definitely definitely a thought that anytime he gets the chance, he would take a revenge. In the previous passage, we have read so. Antonio also assures the Jew that he can exact the full penalty for non-payment of the money on the day appointed by him. That is, if he fails to repay the loan on the decided date, he would be ready to pay the penalty, whatever laid down by Shylock in the bond. And in this way, we see that this speech is preparing us for the dangers of the bond. This gives Shylock a chance to take the revenge. And now there is an idea that is running into the mind of Shylock, that is, he is preparing a kind of bond, a kind of thing, so that he can reconcile, satisfy his heart after taking the revenge upon Antonio. I think these lines are clear to you. Let us go again with these lines. If thou wilt lend this money, lend it not as to thy friend. So Antonio tells that if you lend this money, don't think that you are lending it to your friends, because friendship never demands interest, because friendship never demands the multiplicity of the money. So you just lend it rather to thine enemy. That is, you lend it as if you are lending to your enemy. And if your enemy breaks the condition or not able to repay the money, you can exact the penalty. You can you are entitled to get the penalty whatever he decides. Okay, these lines are clear. Now we see the importance of these lines, or the critical note that you always use while doing explanations of the passages. There are 3 steps of doing the explanation or of attempting this type of question. The first, you have to give the reference to the context of the lines, then you have to give the explanations of the line, and then you have to remark the critical note if you have. Here what we have? Here we have 1 or 2 points. The number 1, that these lines reveals the character of Antonio. What kind of Antonio is? Antonio has unreasonable hatred and extremely impolite conduct towards the Jew. He has the permanent prejudice against the Jew. So this is one of the feature of his character. Number 2, that he has lack of tolerance and hatred of Shylock. This is the another feature of his character, which is contrary to his conduct towards others. Towards others, he is quite polite and very generous. Although we also see that this kind of the usual attitude of Christians towards the Jews at that time was common. Christians used to hate the Jews. If you have read Goldsmith's one-act play, I think, in which there is a Jew and there is a Christian, and Christians hates the Jew Darcy. I have forgotten the name of the play. Okay, what is the second point in these lines? The second point is that this speech of Antonio is an instance of what is known as irony of hate, irony of fate, because it contains a sort of justification for Shylock for the bargain. So there is the irony of fate in the sense that whatever the step or whatever the attitude that Antonio has and going to take is going to become the fate of him. We see that where the fate of Antonio is taking him. So, this is as irony of fate. And on the part of Shylock, this gives him a justification. That is what he wanted. And since he is now it's clear that he is giving the money to the enemy, not a friend. So he is entitled. He is entitled to accept the penalty with better grace. And this is what exactly Shylock is now going to do. So this was the explanation of these lines. So today we have done again the two passages. Thank you very much. See you again with a new video for explanations of the new passages from the Merchant of Venice. We have finished Act 1. Tomorrow we shall do with Act 2 of this play. Again, thank you very much.